Hello everyone, myself Priscilla. This is a new initiative brought to you by Transform IAS Academy. In this, we will be detailing the current affairs on a daily basis related to UPSC and KPSC exam. So let's get started for 22/6/2018, the Hindu analysis. So the first news item is with respect to India notifies the higher tariffs on US imports, and also we also have the dangerous spiral. So basically we are talking with the tariff and the trade war. So two important things which has to be taken into considerations pertaining to India, where India imposes the tariffs as high as 50% on the list of 30 imported goods from US. So whatever we have been importing from US, India has been imposed the tariffs as high as 50% on 30 goods. And also India notifies to the WTO, says that the US tariffs on steel and aluminium would cost India with almost like $241 million. And the tariffs imposed on the US is in proportion to this amount. So whatever India has been increased out here, it's telling that is with proportion to the tariffs which has been increased on the steel and the aluminium. And India notified the higher tariffs on several items imported from US. The few to be listed from the agriculture products such as apples, almonds, chickpeas, lentils and walnuts, and industrial products such as iron and steel products, and also to attract the higher tariffs. And we have the Harley-Davidson motorcycles row, where the US had tried to squeeze India to set a zero import duty on the Davidson motorcycles. And India has also indicated its preference to deal with the issue through dialogue and not the measures or the countermeasures. And the threat of the trade war is also visible in the global trade market. During the G7 summit, US rejected the idea of rule-based trading system. So US during the G7 summit has rejected the idea or the concept of having a rule-based trading system, and China and EU have also imposed the tariffs on US products. It's not only India which has been imposed the tariffs on US products, but also we have China and EU which have actually imposed the tariffs on the US products. So let's see with respect to US and EU. So your EU means it's a European Union, also began to charge the import duties of 25% on the range of the US products in response to US tariffs imposed to EU steel and aluminium. And the move confirms that it is a tit for a tat dispute that could escalate into a full trade war, particularly if the US President Donald Trump carries out his threat to penalize the European cars. If the European cars is being penalized by the Trump, then the EU will also start making the tariffs more stricter when compared to the increase in with respect to whatever the threat has been penalized by the EU cars, that the Trump wants to increase the tariffs. And if that's the case, then we also have a tit for a tat from EU, and this we call it as a full trade war. And when it comes to US and China, China has also announced a plan to hike 25% on 106 imports from US. So here the Chinese move was in response to US announcement of 25% tariff on 1,333 Chinese products. So basically, when this is a tit for a tat, as US is looking out to increase the tariff and China is also increasing the tariff, and the same issue we also had it with EU, wherein for India even the same issue with steel and aluminium, as it has been increased, India also wants to increase with the tariff prices. However, both the countries negotiated with an agreement, that is China and US negotiated with an agreement not to impose the tariffs on each other, pulling back from the brink of a trade war. So this is what they have come for negotiations. And the next news item we have is the world's hungry population on a rise again, says a UN report. So here we have a very important report for the year 2018. It's a UN Sustainable Development Goals. We call it as SDGs. The report says the number of hungry people in the world has risen for the first time in more than a decade. For more than a decade, the number of hungry people in the world has been risen, and there are now approximately 38 million more undernourished people in the world, rising from 777 million in 2015 to 815 million in 2016. So what would be the reasons or the factors for this particular rise? The first thing is with respect to the conflict. second is the drought, and third comes with respect to the disasters linked to climate change. And the other findings of the report are the conflicts is a main driver for the food insecurity in 18 countries. So whatever the conflicts is happening between the countries or among themselves, this is becoming as a biggest important factor for the rise of the hungry people around the world, where we have almost 18 countries which are suffering with this particular conflict matters. And it has also led to forced displacement of 68.5 million people in the year 2017. And there is also an economic losses due to the climatic disaster was over with a dollar of 300 billion. The climatic disaster is also an economic loss. Due to the economic loss, the hunger is also having a side by increase. And in South Asia, the risk of girl-child marriage has dropped by 40% from the year 2000 to 2017. So these are other findings from the SDG report. And the water stress level in many countries of South Asia is about 70%, so which is again a negative part of it. And 90% of the urban population globally are breathing polluted air. So we have like 90% of the urban population. We are not talking about India, the China, or any other country. Globally, 90% of the urban population are breathing the polluted air, and South Asia region are the worst performers among the all. So these are the important findings which we have got it from the SDG report 2018. So here you have the setback in hunger eradications. So here you can see that the percentage of undernourished people worldwide increased for the first time in 2016 after being a constant decline since 2000. Right? And this is about the SDGs. We have actually 17 SDGs where it has been adopted by the UN member nations, United Nations member nations in the year 2015. And the deadline to meet this particular SDG goals is by 2030 they have to do it. And the important SDG goals are these: industry, innovation, infrastructure, then we have the inequality, clean water, sanitation, clean energy, climate change, cities and communities, consumption, production, hunger, health, education, equality, economic growth, decent work, life below water, life on land, poverty, peace and justice, partnership for goals. So these particular SDGs are not in order. You have to just put it on to the order, but these are the 17 important SDG goals which we have to achieve by the year 2030. And this is a replacement of MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals, which we were not able to fulfill it. Right? The next news item: access to Aadhaar database will help solve the cases faster. So now we have a very important bureau called the National Crime Records Bureau, which requested the government to provide limited access to Aadhaar database, as it will start getting more access to the Aadhaar database so that the cases can be solved faster. So what happens here in India is that the fingerprint experts are able to visit just 1% of the registered cases. And the reason is many states do not have an adequate fingerprint cadre strength, nor do they have a proper equipment. This is the biggest problem what we have in India, because most of the states they don't have an adequate fingerprint. On top of that, there is no proper equipments as well. So this led to demand for the limited access to Aadhaar card database, which helps to solve the interstate crime. So by not having these particular equipments or the fingerprints adequately, we were not able to solve the cases of the interstate crime, and the limited case access were also the reasons for not having a proper full-fledged access when it comes to the Aadhaar database. And 80 to 85% of the crimes for the first time offenders who are not in the police records. So most of the police records don't have the trace of 80 to 85% of the criminals who are called as the first time offenders, as there is no much clues or the much data which has been available on them. And the Aadhaar card will help to nab these criminals by tallying the collected fingerprints. And also it will help to identify the unidentified body recovered by police. So if there's any kind of murders or suicides or whatever, so if the body is not been unidentified by this particular fingerprints and also with respect to the Aadhaar card database what we have, you would be able to recover the body which has been identified by the policemen. And the reform for it would be, first and foremost, NCRB demanded the Ministry of Home Affairs, that is MHA, to modernize all the state fingerprint bureaus so that the expert could at least visit 10% of the scenes of crime. And NCRB demanded the amendment to the Identification of the Prisoners Act 1920, so that the other modern biometrics such as the iris, veins, signature, voice could also be captured. So this is a new amendment what they're looking out for, demanded for, and NCRB emphasized the need for the National Automated Fingerprint Identification System. We call it as NAFIS. And you have to know brief information about the NCRB, National Crime Record Bureau. It is an office which has been attached to the Ministry of Home Affairs, and the Government of India was established this in the year 1986 with a mandate to empower the Indian police with information technology solutions and the criminal intelligence to enable them to enforce the law effectively. It is also responsible for collecting and analyzing the crime data as defined by the Indian Penal Code IPC, right? And the NCRB is been headquartered in New Delhi. The very important concept what you have to understand is that NCRB is an attached office of MHA, the year 1986. Year is also fine, not required, but we cannot predict the questions of UPSC, and the headquarters which is in New Delhi, and understand like what is the main work of the NCRB. And the next important news item is that a bill that is causing a worry. So here we are basically talking about the Citizenship Amendment Bill 2006, and this bill will not be tabled in the upcoming Parliament monsoon session. So they had an idea of making or tabling this particular bill into the Parliament, but right now in the upcoming monsoon session we will not be tabling with the bill called the Citizenship Amendment Bill 2016. The delay is due to holding of a wider consultation by the joint committee, parliamentary committee, before reaching to a conclusion, because they want to hold a consultation with the joint parliamentary committee before reaching to a conclusion, and the bill was introduced in July 2016 and referred to a parliamentary committee. And the main objectives of the bill is actually to remove the tag of illegal migrants from the members of the minority communities, that is Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, Jains, we have the Christians, Parsis from Pakistan, Bangladesh and Afghanistan, who have entered the country without a legal documentation or whose documents have been expired. To have a proper objective or remove this taboo of calling an illegal migrants, I want to amend this particular part so that whatever the legal documents, whatever they don't have it, or without the legal documents or whichever has been expired, so they can get in connected with it. And the amendment will not cover the Muslims. So, and this amendment is not covering the Muslims who are from the majority in these particular countries, that is from Pakistan, Bangladesh and Afghanistan. And the coverage would be the Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, Jains, Christians and Parsis. And the main idea behind the bill is to make these migrants legible to apply for the Indian citizenship for naturalization, because we have the brand, when I call it as brand, which means that under the Citizenship chapter we call it as birth, B, and for R it is registration, and for A we have the acquisition, and for N it is naturalization, and for D is the descent. So by understanding the brand you will be able to know what are the different ways that we can acquire the citizenship of India, the brand name, right? So here we are talking about the idea where the migrants are eligible to apply for the Indian citizenship by naturalization, that is by N. And here we have the naturalization actually requires the applicants to have to be stayed in the country for 11 years of the previous 14 years and throughout the last 12 months. But the proposed amendment reduces the residency requirement to 6 years. So here you have 11 years, but they are reducing it to 6 years, and besides that we also have this 12 months, that is the last stay. The last 12 months they have to be stayed in India. And the opposition to the bill is strong from Assam, where there is a fear that the non-Muslim migrants from Bangladesh will become the Indian citizens. So Assam state is not happy with it. So they have a kind of in fear that the non-Muslim migrants might become the Indian citizen from Bangladesh. And another feature of the proposed amendment is that it enables the cancellation of the registration of OCIs, that's the Overseas Citizen of India card holder, for the violation of Indian law. And this amendment also has the authority to cancel the registration of any overseas citizen of India who have a violation of the Indian law, in sense a card holder for the violation of the Indian law. So these are the important news items for 22/6/2018. Thank you.